Good afternoon to you. 406 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up top of the hour, we'll be joined by Philip Lenzycki. That's at 5 o'clock. He's with the Daily Caller News Foundation, an expert on China. We'll get him to react to this visit by Xi Jinping to the United States and what Joe Biden gave away in the process. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We'll return to this with more detail coming up, but the Wall Street Journal reports that the special counsel investigating Joe Biden's theft of classified documents is not expected to charge him now with any criminal charges whatsoever. Shock upon shocks. They said that they're going to prepare a report that will be harshly critical. It's nice to be a Democrat. All right, let's get to our next guest, and we'll get back to that, I promise you. Congressman Ben Cline joins us now. He's a Republican representing Virginia's 6th Congressional District. He's also a member of the House Judiciary Committee, and he's here on the phone. Hello, Congressman. Good to have you with us.
Vince, great to be with you.
It's an amazing day in America, but we're looking back at this meeting yesterday between Joe Biden and the Chinese Communist Party's Xi Jinping. What do you make of that meeting, and are you concerned that Joe Biden gave away the store?
Well, we're very concerned that he's been giving away the store for years, and the investigations into his receipt of funds from Chinese nationals, among others, is something that we're looking into. But for the meeting itself, you know, he talked a lot of talk, but for all of the hue and cry, there really wasn't much that resulted. Agreeing to try and reduce the amount of fentanyl that China sends to the United States, I mean, that's ridiculous. They are killing Americans left and right. And they're sending it through Mexico. So
yes.
if they say they're going to reduce the amount they're sending to the United States directly, well, that just means they're going to achieve their goals another way.
Right. And don't you think if Joe Biden was serious about that he would actually secure the border?
Exactly. And we know that the Biden border crisis keeps getting worse. It continues to create more drug traffic, more sex traffic, human trafficking, more crime in each community. You know, every district in the Congress is now a border district. It's not just the ones in Texas, but they are dealing with not just hundreds of thousands, but millions of people coming across the border. The entire population of Virginia, 8 million illegals during the Biden administration. That's the entire population of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that's just absurd.
And that's just what we know about. Congressman Ben Cline, among the issues that apparently were discussed yesterday, the climate and panda diplomacy. If it were a Republican president or anybody but Joe Biden, what would the priorities be if you were dealing with China?
Well, the theft by China of U.S. technology, of U.S. Intellectual property, the economic abuse that China continues to heap on the United States, the disadvantage that they're putting our businesses, our inventors, our workers, and Joe Biden just seemed to gloss over a lot of what they have been doing these many years.
Did you think it was weird? Biden was asked yesterday whether or not he stands by his remark that Xi Jinping is a dictator. He kind of waffled on the answer. I'm going to play the answer so people can hear it. He says he is, and then he tried to soften it up a bit, I guess.
Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that we used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
Yeah, he is. He runs a communist country. It's based on a form of government totally different than ours, said Biden. I noticed, Congressman Cline, that right in the front seats was Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He cringed when Biden said dictator, and he started wringing his hands, literally wringing his hands, that Biden was speaking this way. What do you make of this craziness?
Well, Blinken is the perfect caricature of Biden diplomacy. It's hand-wringing, it's cringing, it's we don't want to offend anybody, even dictators who are, the definition of a dictator is somebody who controls the politics of your country, a one-party system where your enemies are jailed, killed, their families killed, their businesses absorbed by the one-party state, and there's only one authority, and it's him. And that's the dictator. That's what Biden should have said when asked if he's a dictator. Just should have laid it out there and said. And quite frankly, the United States, just as it doesn't deal with those who take hostages like Hamas has done over in Israel, we don't kowtow to dictators either.
We were playing audio earlier in the show, Congressman, of young people on TikTok expressing sudden admiration for Osama bin Laden, if you can believe it. They read his manifesto declaring why it was worth attacking America, and they're reading it approvingly. But these young people who are reading all of this and then sharing these videos, this is all being done on TikTok, the Chinese-controlled app. TikTok. Are you concerned about the Chinese influence operations playing out in the United States?
We should be very concerned, and we know that China has used TikTok to push ideas, to push themes of racial strife, of trying to sow dissension within the United States, to try and pit Americans against Americans. They've been doing that for years. And the young people, if told about a psyop being run by some foreign government that they're falling prey to, most young people today are those types of cynics who wouldn't let that kind of abuse happen to them knowingly, but instead they're happily participating because it's on their phones and in their hands, and we've got to do more to educate young people about the dangers of TikTok.
That's for sure. Congressman Cline, I want to ask you about a piece of legislation you just introduced recently aimed at protecting America from foreign espionage. What can be done to stop spying, in particular by countries like China? Well,
China readily engages the United States, the business community, steals our intellectual property, takes it back to China, duplicates it, then patents it in China, and then sues those who seek to compete against China, against the copy. And so all the time we are trying to combat that. We have closed Chinese consulates in Texas because of the spying that was going on there, expelling diplomats who engage in spying. But our laws allow them to turn right around and apply for visas again. And so the bill I introduced is pretty simple. It just says that once you're out, and you can't come back and ask to come back in again to apply for visas or special entry access to this country. It just makes common sense. It's just common sense. If you're stealing from America, don't expect to come here once you get kicked out.
Yesterday, a bunch of American CEOs gave Xi Jinping a big standing ovation at an event in California, and I thought that was insane. Isn't it kind of embarrassing that the same CEOs who have all of their intellectual property being stolen from them by China are still kowtowing to the country's leader?
Well, it is, and we need that kind of economic America first ideology, that that nationalist sentiment among our CEOs. We haven't had it for years and years, but that patriotism is necessary to make a great country. You don't have a great country without a great economy, without a strong economy, and you don't have a strong economy without strong inventors and business owners who love their country. And so we need more people who are standing up for America and not trying to have it both ways.
Before we let you go, Congressman, given that you're a congressman from Virginia, the FBI has been trying for some time to come up with a decision on where the headquarters is going to be. The Biden administration has their new headquarters. First of all, as if they deserve a new headquarters. Have they been especially well behaved for us to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on them? But apparently they chose Greenbelt, the General Services Administration did. And now you're seeing Christopher Wray is alleging there may have been corruption in the process of choosing Maryland over Virginia. What do you think of this whole thing?
Well, there's no surprise there. This administration is full of bureaucrats who weaponize the rules of the road to benefit them or their side. And so to see that it's happening in the GSA, it shouldn't shock or surprise anyone, least of all Jerry Connolly or Don Beyer, someone up in Northern Virginia who's right in the thick of the bureaucracy. But, the FBI doesn't deserve to have a new headquarters, period. We voted on and passed amendments to the legislation, the appropriations bills, to prohibit the use of additional funds to build it. The problem is they've been banking a lot of money over the years for this very building, and there have been amendments to try and prevent them from using that money as well. Unfortunately, a few Republicans sided with the Democrats to defeat those amendments, and so they still can use that pot of money and still can go along and plan to build this building wherever it is, in Virginia or Maryland. I think there are too many bureaucracies inside the Beltway. We need to start shipping them out to other parts of the country. I think the EPA would do well down in New Orleans. I think that the Department of Agriculture would do well in the Rust Belt or in the Ag Belt in Kansas, somewhere out there, and the Department of Education. We should try Alabama or
nowhere. That particular agency could disappear.
Eliminate the Department of Education. That's exactly right. We should just do away with them altogether.
All right. Well, once the FBI, is a good boy again, then maybe we can think about giving it a present. But I don't think a building is in order right now. Maybe a spanking. That's where we start with the FBI. Hey, Congressman Ben Cline, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Vince.
Congressman Cline in Virginia. It is amazing. Isn't it amazing? They're like debating, where do we build a brand new headquarters? Hundreds of millions of dollars, yada, yada, yada. Like, since when do you deserve it? Let's go back. If your kid came to you and was like demanding a PlayStation, where are we going to put the PlayStation? Is it going to be in the living room or is it going to be in my bedroom? How about we back up and we start with, you don't deserve a PlayStation. What are you talking about? What are you, entitled to a PlayStation? No, that's not happening. You get your life in order. Then we could talk about maybe, letting you go see a movie or something. You're not getting a PlayStation. What are you, nuts? So we're going to build an FBI headquarters, hundreds of millions of dollars. Does that make any sense? And we're at the point where the FBI is so corrupt, where the Biden administration is so corrupt, that even the FBI director is looking around going, hey, this is kind of corrupt. And it's nuts. We've got, tomorrow, I've got FBI whistleblower Steve Friend on the show. We're going to talk about this very subject. What does he think about all this? He was working on the inside. He's got some thoughts on this subject. It's right. He's right. It's crazy out there. On this meeting with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, Biden announced yesterday that the two men reached an agreement on halting the production of illicit fentanyl. China doesn't do it. They don't produce the fentanyl. They send the precursors to Mexico. The cartels assemble it there, sends it into the country, killing Americans. They also want to resume military-to-military communications. Will it look anything like Mark Milley's military-to-military communications with China? Hey, look, if we're going to attack you, we're going to call you ahead of time and let you know, okay? What are you talking about? We're going to call them ahead of time. What kind of strategy is that? You don't tell the opposing team your play before you run it. What is that? Biden and Xi meeting Wednesday at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, the two world leaders' first face-to-face meeting since November of 2022. In a 4-hour bilateral meeting, Biden and Xi agreed to begin taking steps to resume military-to-military communications, and the Chinese leader agreed to take actions to dramatically curtail the creation of precursors to fentanyl, the president and a senior administration official said. Quote, I welcome the positive steps we've taken today, and it's important for the world to see that we're implementing the approach in the best traditions of American diplomacy, Biden said. In the months ahead, we're going to continue to preserve and pursue high-level diplomacy to the PRC in both directions to keep the lines of communication open, including President Xi and me. He and I agreed that each one of us wants to pick up the phone, call directly, and will be heard immediately. All right, so I saw this quote and the fact that Biden said it, and I started panicking. I was like, no, wait a second, please don't do this. So Biden worked out with Xi, and I guarantee Xi was like, hey, look, let's just cut through all the diplomats. Don't worry about these lower-ranking guys. What do they know? They don't know anything. You and me, Joe. You call me anytime you want, and we'll work it out. We'll just talk amongst ourselves, and whatever we agree upon, that's how we're going to operate. And I'm sure Joe was like, yeah, let's do that. So now Joe's impression is that he's going to be calling all the shots here. Now, under normal circumstances, he absolutely should. The President of the United States, that's the elected official, not the other bureaucrats all around him. But we're talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to conduct all this diplomacy with China on his own. Don't you worry, bucko. I'm going to personally handle China. Oh, no. What a disaster. Some of the disasters from yesterday, including Biden is lifting sanctions relief on a Chinese human rights abuser in exchange for Xi's promise to combat fentanyl. Bloomberg reported yesterday that that China says it's going to crack down on those chemical precursors for fentanyl in exchange for the U.S. lifting sanctions on the Ministry of Public Security's Institute of Forensic Science. The Commerce Department said in 2020 that particular Chinese agency has been, quote, engaging in human rights violations and abuses, as they genocide the Uyghurs in Western China. We're going to go easy on them in exchange for China doing absolutely nothing. Are you serious? They're really going to crack down on the precursors? I'll believe it when I see it, and we're never going to see it. Coming up, Joe Biden stole a bunch of classified documents. The consequences for that action? Well, they're coming up right now. The breaking news ahead. Well, happy Thursday to you. 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Philip Lenjicki will be with us. He's a China reporter, expert on the subject. We'll talk to him about everything that's taken place this week, especially as it relates to Xi Jinping and Joe Biden. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Speaking of Joe, we've got a report out today from the Wall Street Journal and elsewhere, a couple of outlets now saying this, CNN among them, that the special counsel Robert Hur is not expected to level any charges whatsoever against Joe Biden for stealing classified documents from his time as a United States senator and as vice president of the United States. He's a Biden. He'll get away with it. Wall Street Journal headline, Biden expected to face harsh criticism in classified document probe. Don't go too hard on him. Bunch of harsh criticism coming Biden's way. The prosecutor investigating why classified documents ended up at President Biden's home and former office is preparing a report that's expected to be sharply critical of how he and his longtime aides handled the material. But the probe isn't likely to result in a criminal case, according to people familiar with the matter. Since his appointment in January, special counsel Robert Hur has interviewed roughly 100 of Biden's aides, colleagues, and family members, including his son, Hunter, culminating in a 2-day interview with the president last month. The documents in question date to Biden's time as vice president during the Obama administration, as well as his days in the U.S. Senate. The number of interviews Hur's team has conducted indicates it cast a wide net in trying to answer questions about how the material was packed and handled and wound up at an office Biden used at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, a Washington-based think tank, and in the garage of his home in Wilmington, Delaware, alongside his vintage Corvette. You notice how the Wall Street Journal is framing this? I like the Journal's coverage for the most part, but this is maddening to me, what I'm reading here. The framing here is they're just trying to figure out how it ended up there. Nobody once says that these documents were stolen. No, it's not said. That's the thing we know. We know the documents were stolen from government custody. There was no basis for that to occur. He was vice president of the United States. He could not have declassified any of this. They stole them. whether it was Biden directly or his aides doing it on his behalf, or they thought that he might want these stolen documents. But there's a whole lot of, they're trying to figure out how they ended up there. What do you mean how they ended up there? They're trying to figure out who stole them? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying? The Wall Street Journal continues. Among those Hur spoke to were Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was an aide to Biden in the Senate and his national security advisor when he was vice president, current White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and top White House political aide Steve Ricchetti, and Biden's former chief of staff, Ron Klain. Antony Blinken. You know, Blinken pops up in a lot of these stories, doesn't he? Wasn't Blinken the guy who was coordinating a lot of the shenanigans during the 2020 election when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop and the FBI and all the intel officials coming along and claiming it was Russian disinformation? Blinken's at the center of a lot of this. He's always like sitting there on the sidelines, wringing his hands, trying to maneuver things, trying to control Biden. Don't you get that impression? I honestly think that was really telling yesterday. That camera shot of Antony Blinken, and bless whoever actually aimed the camera at him. When Biden said that he still thinks that Xi is a dictator, he mumbles about, well, I think he's a dictator. He's like, you know, in the sense that he runs a country that's a communist country. It's based on a form of government totally different than ours, Biden said. Is it? Is it totally different? Are you a little annoyed we're not quite to where Xi Jinping is yet? We're on the way. The Marxists are on the march. They're everywhere. They're attacking the DNC headquarters now. But Antony Blinken, among those who sat for interviews with Robert Hur. The investigation is focused on who handled the documents and what procedures they followed in doing so, the people said. Hur is expected to release a lengthy report in the next couple of months, potentially before the end of this year. Couple of months, potentially before the end of this year. That would be the next month, basically, if they were to actually do that. One would assume that they would release it earlier rather than later because, you know, the Justice Department wouldn't want voters to think too much about Biden stealing classified documents just before the election, right? So they're going to sell this as, oh, we're not meddling in the election. We're releasing it way before. Really? Meanwhile, they're trying to throw Donald Trump in jail. They're going to release a report on Biden stealing documents and why that's okay. That'll be the end of the year. There's no charges coming for him. Representatives for Hur, the White House, Hunter Biden, and President Biden's legal team declined to comment or didn't respond to requests for comment. Yeah, on the Hunter Biden thing, let me return to a detail from earlier in the story. They said that they spoke to Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was one of the people they talked to for this. Well, why would you have to talk to Hunter? Why would Hunter be involved in a conversation with Robert Hur about Joe Biden stealing classified documents? Isn't that kind of interesting? You know, one of the thoughts was that Hunter Biden had access to classified material and he stole it and used it, or his father gave it to him and he used it in order to inform emails that he was sending and in order to make himself look competent when he was assessing the Ukrainian energy market. Do you remember this? There were Ukrainian energy emails with unbelievable detail in them. And you have people who've looked at these and go, that's not Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden doesn't sound like that ever. How does he have an assessment like this? And the thought was, well, what classified documents did the Bidens steal? That might give you the answer. If the documents in question, if Ukrainian energy documents are sitting in the garage next to the Corvette, might explain Hunter's sudden clairvoyance on the Ukrainian energy market. Perhaps. So Hunter Biden did, apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, sit for interviews with Robert Hur. That's kind of interesting. Will it result in anything consequential? Well, apparently not. No charges coming. Just a harshly worded report is expected. I remember those. Remember Hillary Clinton's harshly worded report? The one that James Comey gave her, where he changed gross negligence to mean something else. It was like they changed like the meaning of the word. She was extremely reckless with these documents. You mean grossly negligent? Well, we wouldn't go that far. We would say extremely reckless with her handling of classified information. What do you mean extremely reckless? She was the Secretary of State. Setting up a private server in your bathroom to handle classified information is obviously guilty in every sense. And they did release a harshly worded report, so that we got a good old wrist slap for Hillary Clinton. Luckily, voters rendered a judgment on that one. There were some consequences for her that she's never gotten over. Hur has assembled a small team of prosecutors, the Journal says, including some from the Maryland U.S. Attorney's Office that he used to lead, and a former top federal prosecutor in Iowa. That team has worked largely under the radar, proceeding as a separate special counsel. Jack Smith is prosecuting former President Donald Trump for his retention of such material after he left the White House. The two teams have been working out of the same nondescript office complex several miles from the Justice Department's headquarters, sometimes crossing each other in the halls. Oh, isn't that great? So they share office space. You've got the team that's trying to throw Trump in jail for his handling of, at one time, classified documents. Trump, of course, has been saying, I was president. I could declassify this stuff. That's true. That is true. He could do that. And a president of the United States deciding in the final hours of his presidency to take documents with him does kind of seem like an implicit declassification, doesn't it? And then the vice president of the United States and a former senator steals classified documents. No ability whatsoever to have these things. None. Certainly not at his home next to his Corvette inside of his crappy garage. None. The two teams work out of the same office, and only one man is being charged, and that's the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. It's a real chin scratcher what's going on here. It's amazing how justice is this blind. So they work out of the same office complex. They even cross each other in the halls. They'll high five occasionally. They've worked out secret high fives as they walk by. Trump supporters have accused the Justice Department of a double standard in treatment. Yeah, no kidding. Biden supporters have pointed to the president's legal team's cooperation and swift moves to inform the National Archives of the document's discovery as a key difference. Really? Is that a meaningful difference? If your lawyers make a big show of, oh, look at us, we're working with you. Yes, he violated the law, but so long as we work with you, there won't be consequences, right? That's right. As long as you kiss the ring of the Justice Department, there won't be consequences for you. This is the standard? Is that what it is? So because Trump and his attorneys have engaged in an extended back and forth on this subject, they, whoa, you're not entitled to that. Like, what? Okay, what do you want us to do? Put a lock on the door. I put a lock on the door. The back and forth, because you weren't just bending over and accepting it from the Justice Department, then now you deserve harsher criticism? Come on. The Federal Bureau of Investigation obtained a warrant to search Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in Palm Beach, Florida in August 2022 after more than a year of negotiations between Trump's lawyers, the National Archives, and later the Justice Department. Yeah, okay. So it just goes on and on here, but that's it. They say it's unlikely that Biden is going to get any charges here. Let's take a phone call. We've got Mike in Washington, D.C., line 3. Mike, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Cline Show.
Hey, Vince, how you doing?
Good, Mike.
Good. This is an intent charge against Trump. So his lawyers get to call in Hur, Hunter Biden, Blinken, every single person that was interviewed by Hur to find out what their standard is for charging the law. The judge in Florida is going to allow these people to be called as witnesses now. Under case law, under criminal law, their understanding of a charge can be asked on the stand. This is going to be a circus. They can do it to hide charges against Biden all they want, but they're going to be exposed. I would think Jack Smith can be called now to ask, did you have any conversations with her staff? Did your staff members have them? If I were the judge on this case, I would allow those motions to be heard and those people to be questioned. And the appellate courts would agree. I mean, they can't do this. You can't do this under the law now. Thank God for this judge in Florida.
Eileen Cannon. Mike, are you an attorney?
Yes, I did criminal law for a long time.
And so you think it's a pretty clear-cut case here that that you can point out the double standard and you have witnesses who can speak directly to it.
Without a question, you have the right to put them on the stand and to explore those facts, and then the jury gets to decide if your argument is correct. The standard in law is called, it goes to the weight, not to the evidence, meaning that if you can suggest there's a double standard, you're allowed to present evidence that there may be a double standard.
Well, interesting.
And
So
then the
what
jury
could
or the
happen,
judge
Mike?
gets to decide if there is.
What could happen here?
If there's an opening that there is a double standard, you get to present it.
Got it. So what could happen here is they're saying that this supposedly harshly worded report will be out before the end of the year. If that's the case, that would, based on the scenario you're laying out, that would help Trump quite a bit, because then they would have the report. They could look at what's alleged about Biden's behavior, and then they have that to use in their questioning of Robert Hur and everybody around him.
I would depose all of them. I would file motions to depose them all individually.
Interesting.
And I'd want them televised. What questions did you ask? What standard did you use? How long did you allow before you got a search warrant? What was your justification for not charging? And then you get to compare that next to the standard that Smith used against Trump.
Fascinating. Well, I hope she allows it. And I agree with you on televising all of this. The American people deserve to see every minute in all of these courtrooms of what's actually going on. Mike, really.
Without a question. And if she doesn't, an appellate court would. Imagine, take Democrat and Republican out of it, right? Make one person a white person, another person an African American. Could you imagine the judge having a double standard and then not allowing that to be exposed in questions in the court? And those are the cases that will control what happens. It's clear. It's not even a question that this is going to happen.
Well, that's an encouraging assessment. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate that phone call. Yep. That's helpful. All right, let's take Leo calling in from Colorado on line 4. Leo, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Cline Show.
Hey, Vince. Thanks. That's a tough act to follow, man. He really hammered it home. No, I was telling Corey, I've been in this business for so long. I've had a TS since 1979 continuous and SCI access since 83. And we go through annual training. This year we went through additional training because of that young airman that walked out of the Pentagon and wanted to put, classified information on social media. And, it is a double standard. There's people sitting in Leavenworth that have compromised classified information. And, are they going to get a strongly worded, reprimand in their life back?
No way.
From, taking it? No.
No way.
No, this needs to stop. It needs to stop.
Well, this goes to the left's claim, right? They always say that no man is above the law. No man is above the law. Really? Well, it sounds like a former vice president, former United States senator, now president of the United States, is squarely above the law. And by the way, in Trump's case, they often wield that phrase. In his case, it turns out he's beneath the law. That's the way they're treating him.
Right. And it needs to stop. How much more? Now we've got, the cocaine evidence that, they say they've got DNA on that. It's being held. Well, release it. Release the information. Hillary Clinton needs to be brought up on charges also. The whole server thing. She was not entitled to have that. There's an approval process, actually, for senior executives like that they can have home skills.
So, Leo,
it has to be approved.
Leo, to give us a sense, because you've had a security clearance for a long time, how badly would you be fried if you were doing anything like what Hillary or Joe Biden have been doing?
Oh, I'd be sitting in the Fed pen right now, and I wouldn't be calling you. They'd throw us under the jail for an infraction like that. They would nail us to the cross, Vince.
Big time.
And just what? Seriously, it doesn't matter. I've seen people walked out of the building because they accidentally, what they call a leakage, had put classified onto an unclassified network, and through the IT process, cyber process now, and they were walked out. They were let go.
Yeah.
So done.
Yep.
If they did it deliberately, and this was accidental, Vince, it wasn't even on purpose. You're going to take classified documents to your private home and put it in a garage. Is not a secure facility.
Well, wait a second. He had a vintage Corvette in there. That's about as secure as it gets. He needed to protect that Corvette, Leo.
You're killing me, Coach.
Leo, thanks for the call, man. No, that's the key, though. You've had a security clearance for a long time. You wouldn't even be You wouldn't even be able to listen to this show right now. They'd make sure you were far away from a radio. Coming up on the program, we've got more evidence of Chinese espionage and craziness. A California biolab tied to the Chinese government. Philip Lenjicki has the details. I'll also react to Joe Biden's meeting this week with Xi Jinping. How much did Biden give away? We'll assess it with Philip. That's ahead.